aren't you? You're going to order me a bigger desk for all this stuff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I want to accept the committee's amendment and thank the committee for their work on making this a better bill. AB 1874 will create a framework to allow Judicial Council employees to have collective bargaining power. Currently, the government code cannot be amended to make Judicial Council employees civil servants due to the state's constitutional prohibition. However, the DILS Act can be amended to confer the rights to judicial employees to be able to choose a bargaining unit should they decide to do so. I have one witness, the president of SEIU Local 1000, Ms. Walker.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and committee. Thank you for hearing this bill. I urge you to support this. We have worked this a lot with the Judicial Council, getting amendments so that we could come to an agreement. The employees approached us initially wanting to have representation. We looked into it, found out that we had to amend the DILS Act, which we're trying to do. We're also doing it on a dual track where we're going to PERB. We'll be doing card check. There will be an election by the employees and everything else. This is just the opportunity for the employees to have representation like they've asked to do.
I apologize.
Good afternoon, Michelle Castro at the Service Employees International Union. This bill is a long time in coming. It would allow the employees the same rights that are afforded to every other public employee in California. We ask for your aye vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other witnesses in support? Are there any witnesses in opposition?
Not in opposition. This is Laura Speed, Judicial Council of California. We've been working very closely with the author and sponsors of the bill, and we are neutral on the bill as it stands right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in opposition or neutral? Seeing none. Assemblyman Santiago, would you like to close?
Could I have
I'm
a clarification? I saw at the end
Half the committee has a question and I miss it.
the removal of human resources and government affairs folks. Can you clarify to me? I think it's a good move. How that occurred, or I guess the sign off from Judicial Council, why they felt that those could be part of the bargaining unit versus the confidential employees.
Sure. Well, when we first started off, we had everybody involved, and we went to Judicial Council. Judicial Council had some issues with certain employees, and it was just only confidential employees. It was also managerial and supervisor employees. These are the employees that they deem shouldn't be allowed. Yeah, shouldn't be allowed. And so we took those three categories. I think they almost amount, if I'm not mistaken, to about a third of the employees there. So there'd still be about, if I'm not mistaken, about 600 employees who would be eligible for bargaining should they choose to. But these decisions came in consultation with Judicial Council.
Government affairs people are more like, normal rank and file members versus people that are in the managerial position.
Yeah, well, we started off wide. I think it was in the spirit of working with Judicial Council and all stakeholders that this is what was agreed upon. But I would have agreed with you because that's where we started.
Thanks.
Thank you, Senator Wykowski. Now you can close.
I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Thank you. We are lacking a quorum, so once we have a quorum, we'll take a vote. We'll keep the item open.
Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblyman Santiago. We'd like to go from the last to the first. So, Assemblyman Thurmond, thank you for waiting, and we'll get you done. We're on item 28, Assembly Bill 2873.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair and committee members. We appreciate your flexibility in the order here. It is my honor to present AB 2873. This is a bill that allows us to assist Californians with a disability to ensure that buildings are in compliance. Specifically, it sets up funding to enhance training that is offered to building officials to make sure that all buildings are in compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act, as well as other state compliance measures. This is a program that has been in effect for many years, has demonstrated great success, but like many programs, just doesn't have enough funding to be expanded, to be consistent with the growth that we're experiencing in the state of California. Sadly, we had a great witness who was supposed to be with us here today from Disability Rights California who was unable to be with us, but I'm happy to answer any questions that the committee members may ask, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you. Do you have witnesses in support?
Yes, Mr. Chair and Senator, I'm Bob Raymer, Senior Engineer with the California Building Industry Association, and I've also been asked to speak today on behalf of the Business Properties Association. We removed our opposed unless amended position on the Assembly floor because we were having very productive discussions with the author's office and with the sponsors. We still have a few technical amendments to work out. We also want to make sure that the issues of importance to the California building officials are worked out. You have to understand that right now, the Division of the State Architect tests and certifies about 200 people a year. Under this bill, that's going to skyrocket to about 2,000. We just want to make sure the state and the local jurisdictions have the resources needed to do this, and that it doesn't kind of collapse in on itself. So we're going to continue working, and we're very optimistic that we'll get there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Vice Chair, members, Robert Harris on behalf of Service Employees International Union, who strongly support this bill. Our folks who work in the Lanterman system think it's important, and it's really important because it's such a deliberative way to deal with what's been an ongoing problem in terms of accessibility in buildings newly constructed and remodeled. This gets at a real way to fix that, and we're really proud of the author for bringing it forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Any other witnesses in support? Welcome, Senator Lino. We are on item 28, AB 2873, but don't think we're at the end of the agenda. Sir.
On law and poverty, we're in support of this bill. Thank you.
Anyone else in support of the bill? Anyone in opposition?
Hi, Nicole Bautista with the California Building Officials. And at this point, we're actually more of an in-between. We've been working alongside CBIA, CBPA, and with the author's office, and we're making some great progress on this bill. At this time, our membership feels really strongly about keeping an opposed position until we work out amendments that really suit both our needs and the author and sponsors' needs. And we look forward to continuing to do that should this bill move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in opposition or neutral? All right. Any questions from my colleagues?
Question would be on the increase of the $4 fee. There must be some matrix about the training, the amount of money that's received, and how we can fill that gap, because the staff report talks about we don't have enough CAS people to actually go out and do the work. And I realize that we lifted the cap. So once we get up, is it going to be, I guess my question is it going to be a steady increase, and then we're going to, at $4, we're going to be able to continue, based on the amount of applications that come in, that's going to be self-regenerating so that the amount of CAS-trained individuals are there?
Thank you, Senator, for the question. As you can tell, we've worked very closely with really all stakeholders in the sector, and the $4 is a projection based on the need as we understand it from applications, and I know that our colleagues at CBIA would like to add some emphasis to that.
Yes, we'll be doing a more detailed budget analysis over the next 2 to 3 weeks. I can tell you that right now the Division of the State Architect conducts the test anywhere from 2 to 3 times a year. They're going to be expanding that probably to 10 to 12 times a year to take care of the influx of what we call the tsunami of incoming applicants. Right now, building officials are only required to have one CAS-certified individual with the office, et cetera. This is effectively going to raise that exponentially in a very short period of time. And so what we're doing is making sure we've got enough resources, but we'll have a detailed budget probably done in about 2 to 3 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to close?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I would just say that we are continuing to work with all in this sector, and I would just say that we should put the needs of Californians with disabilities first, and this is a bill that does that. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Assemblyman Thurmond. We don't have a quorum, so we'll hold it open and vote for it once we do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Pardon me?
Working on it.
what if I'm chair, so what if I don't want to hear Assemblyman Gordon right now? What if Nice tie, good color today.
Senator Moore, I promise this will not be a rough bill for you.
That's what I like. Thank you, Richard. We are on item 7, Assembly Bill 1825 with the world-famous Assemblyman Gordon. Welcome.
Thank you. Under existing law, all dogs seized in connection with animal fighting convictions are automatically labeled as vicious. The vicious label is a death sentence for these dogs. AB 1825 would simply ensure that animal professionals individually evaluate these dogs to determine whether they can be rehabilitated to safely re-enter society, or need to be placed in sanctuaries or euthanized if deemed absolutely necessary. California is one of only 11 states that still mandates this automatic designation. I'm happy to co-author this bill with my colleague, Assemblymember Mainshine. In light of the high-profile case of dogs seized from the property of NFL player Michael Vick, 48 of the 49 seized dogs were evaluated positively, and some even became therapy or service dogs. None of these dogs have been involved in incidents that would deem them vicious under provisions of the existing law. 1825 is a bipartisan piece of legislation that will allow animal fighting victims to be judged by their own health and behavior and given the opportunity to live a cruelty-free life. I have here two witnesses, one from the California Animal Control Directors Association and the other from the Stockton Animal Services.
Go ahead. You want to go, Phil?
Thank you, members of the committee, for allowing me to speak on behalf of Stockton Animal Services, a municipal animal shelter operated by the city of Stockton. My name is Philip Zimmerman. After nearly 2 decades with the Stockton Police Department, I became the manager of Stockton Animal Shelter in early 2015. I'm here today to voice strong support for AB 1825, an important piece of legislation that will protect canine victims of cruelty in California. At Stockton Animal Services, every dog that enters our shelter, whether as a stray with no known history, surrendered by its owner, or seized in connection with an abuse situation, is individually evaluated by shelter staff to determine the animal's eligibility for adoption, placement with a rescue organization, or another humane disposition like euthanasia. Each year, we evaluate thousands of dogs using assessment techniques developed over decades by industry specialists. Ultimately, since our agency bears the liability associated with animals we put up for adoption, it is in our best interest to develop the fullest possible picture of each dog and share all that information with potential adopters. Transparency is key, regardless of the source of the dog. With your yes vote on AB 1825, we can send the clear message that canine victims of cruelty do deserve a second chance.
Good afternoon, members of the Senate Judiciary Committee. My name is Henry Brzezinski, and I'm the Chief of Animal Services here in El Dorado County. Today, I'm here on behalf of the California Animal Control Directors Association to voice our support for AB 1825. CACTA represents animal care and control professionals and agencies in California and has member agencies in each of your districts. As an animal services professional for more than 3 decades, I know firsthand the cost of the cruel underworld of dogfighting. These dogs suffer terrible abuse. They're often kept isolated on heavy chains, run beyond their endurance on treadmills, and starved. When we rescue a dog from this life of fear and violence, we hope it is the start of a new beginning for them. AB 1825 will help ensure that canine victims of convicted dogfighters in California get the second chance they deserve. Research has proven what our experience had already shown us. According to the National Canine Research Council, each dog must be looked at as an individual. Behavior is extremely plastic and context-specific, so a dog removed from a cruelty context would be expected to change significantly once he or she has lived in a humane environment with daily opportunities for positive interactions with humans. On behalf of the California Animal Control Directors Association, I respectfully ask that your yes vote on AB 1825. Thank you.
Thank Thank you, Mr. Brzezinski, and thank you, Mr. Zimmerman. Are there any other witnesses in support?
Eric Sakish, Senior Law Enforcement Specialist with the Humane Society of the United States, urging your yes vote. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Jennifer Fearing on behalf of the bill's sponsor, Best Friends Animal Society, as well as the San Diego Humane Society and the Humane Society Veterinary Medical Association. Thank you.
Nicole Wertelman on behalf of the Ventura County Board of Supervisors, Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors, and Social Compassion and Legislation and Support.
Navneet Bandal from San Francisco SPCA. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Kiara Ross on behalf of the City of Sacramento and support.
Hey there, Jamie Miner for the Beagle Freedom Project and support.
Good afternoon. I'm Erica Hughes with the State Humane Association of California, and we're an in-between support if amended. And first, I'd like to thank Assemblymember Gordon for championing the cause of dogs that have been victims of dogfighting. As Chief Brzezinski said, he's over the 30 years in his career, he's witnessed the untold horrors of that these dogs have had to endure. And second, I would like to thank the committee for an extremely detailed and thoughtful analysis of the bill and the impact that it would have. On behalf of our roughly 150, I'm not sure if I introduced myself. I'm Erica Hughes with the State Humane Association of California, Executive Director.
We've already had two speakers with 2 minutes each, so you should just give your name and your organization and what your position is.
Okay, we're support if amended.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Sorry to be abrupt.
May I respectfully ask that I have a moment to explain the amendment that we're asking for?
If I'm overruled by my colleagues, is it okay? Treat her as opposition. Have a seat.
I may sit? Okay.
See, we're a team.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. So on behalf of our roughly 150-member animal shelters throughout California, I would like to encourage the author to consider the amendment set forth in the analysis to clarify that shelters do in fact have the authority to evaluate each dog, regardless of background, on an individual basis, and to exercise the judgment that strikes the very delicate balance that must be struck between the welfare of animals and the safety of the general public. This is really an opportunity for the legislature to empower in a meaningful way the public and private shelters that we as a state entrust with this very difficult job. I have to say that every time I visit one of my member shelters, I am extremely moved by the passion and dedication of the staff who are faced with these life and death decisions every day. As you can imagine, no one wants to be the person who realizes maybe after the fact that they ended the life of a dog that was just needed a second chance. And on the other hand, no one wants to live with the knowledge that they adopted out a dog that turns out to be aggressive and mauls someone like little James Soto, who was the impetus for this bill for the original law back in the 1990s. I think as the author said, shelters really need to be empowered to figure out whether a dog is appropriate for adoption or for sanctuary or even to be euthanized if that's what's appropriate. And right now, under current law, shelters, it's not clear that shelters have that power. And so I would just respectfully ask the committee to consider the very simple but what would be a very powerful and meaningful amendment to this bill. And it's in the analysis. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any others that are in opposition? Seeing none, do my colleagues have any questions? Senator Leno.
Assemblyman Gordon, can you respond to this request for amendment?
Sure. Very willing, with a fairly late notice on this, to continue to talk about this issue. What we've tried to do here with this legislation was to craft a very narrow re-examination of animals, looking just at those coming out of these dog fighting rings. So it is a narrow exemption. The amendment would broaden that exemption. I think we need to consider the implications of that. and happy to do so. Take a look at it. At the end of the day, under this legislation or even under the amendment, each animal shelter would be evaluating these animals, and each shelter carries liability for decisions that they reach in whether or not the dog is safe for placement and needs to be put in some kind of permanent shelter or needs to be euthanized. I think the fact that the shelters have this individual evaluation, and they make the decision, they have the liability, I think is an important part of the legislation. We've tried to keep it narrow, willing to talk about something a little bit broader, but want to make sure that we continue to guarantee public safety as we do so.
Thank you. It's always fascinating, even in the course of not much more than, well, approaching 30 years now, how what seemed to be a thoughtful response to a very tragic situation now needs to be revisited because, in fact, it wasn't the right fix after all. But we all evolve with time. I'm pleased to move the bill once we get our quorum.
All right, thank you, Senator Leno. I was reading the bill and I said, God, I've been here before. And I looked back and it had come up before the Board of Supervisors. And one of the clippings that I found said, why don't you take this issue to the state legislature for a fix? So I want to commend you for fixing it. With that, Assemblyman Gordon, do you have any closing?
I just appreciate the conversation, appreciate the concerns have been raised. We'll continue to work on this and would respectfully ask for an aye vote when you get a quorum.
Thank you. As soon as we do, we will. Thank you, Assemblyman Gordon. That takes us now to item 6, AB 1808 by Assemblyman Wood. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair and Senators. Currently, marriage and family therapists, clinical counselors, and their associated interns can provide services to minors in certain circumstances. Unfortunately, marriage and family therapist trainees and clinical counselor trainees are currently ineligible to provide these valuable services that would help meet the mental health needs in California. This lack of consistency creates a lack of available mental health services for our youth, especially for foster youth with unique life circumstances. AB 1808 simply adds marriage and family therapist trainees and professional clinical counselor trainees to the list of providers eligible to provide services to minors over the age of 12. Trainees will be under the supervision of a licensed MFT or PCC supervisor and must be enrolled and have completed 12 semester units in a qualified graduate program. At the time of supervised counseling, trainees are receiving master's and doctoral degrees in their respective fields that make them capable to provide quality and immediate care for minors. Here with me in support of AB 1808 are Tim Shannon with the California Association of Marriage and Family Therapists and G.V. Ayers with the California Association for Licensed Professional Clinical Counselors. And I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
As Mr. Chair and members, Tim Shannon representing the California Association of Marriage and Family Therapists. As the author has pointed out, this bill would merely add LPCC and MFT trainees to a part of existing law that allows minors to consent to treatment from various mental health professionals. That section of law was enacted in 2010 in a bill sponsored by Senator Leno. This bill will, as your committee analysis points out, will extend mental health services to minors. This is an unmet need that this bill will fulfill, and we ask for your aye vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is G.V. Ayers. I represent the California Association for Licensed Professional Clinical Counselors, and I appreciate the committee's very thoughtful analysis of the bill. We agree with the analysis which states that the legislature anticipated that these trainees would be providing mental health services, and also that this is simply a clarification that's consistent with the existing law. Appreciate Senator Leno's legislation in 2010, which this very touches upon here, and we believe that by providing trainees this ability that this will provide greater access for timely and needed access to mental health care for minors.
Thank you. Are there any other witnesses in support?
Amber King with the Association of California Healthcare Districts in support.
Les Shepard representing the American Association for Marriage and Family Therapists in support.
And I'm Kathy Raven with the California State PTA, and we are in support of the bill.
Great. Anyone else in support? Anyone in opposition? Thank you. Any of my colleagues have any questions? I just have one, and that is just there was only one opposition letter, and it was just a concern about being new and dealing with minors with mental illness. How do parents feel comfortable, and how do I respond to that?
Thank you for your question, Senator. Actually, I think having the supervision is how parents can feel safe about that. I think that these are qualified folks that are actually in graduate programs, so they've received their undergraduate training. It requires thousands of hours to achieve their final license status, and we're trying to meet an unmet need for our youth here, but they will be supervised, and so that I think that's the answer.
And what does supervising entail? Is it receiving a written report, or are they actually both in the room?
Yeah, I'd like to jump in there. The trainees on a weekly basis receive supervision. They meet with their supervisor and they go over the clients they've seen. What happened in the Assembly with this bill is actually goes even further than that. There was an amendment that we think strengthened the bill that was put in the Assembly, which says that if a minor is going to be treated by a trainee, they must be in contact with their supervisor within 24 hours. Much sooner than the weekly supervision that they would normally get.
Thank you. Thank you. Would you like to close?
Just when you get to a quorum, I'd love to have your support and respectfully ask for your vote.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
And we'll hold it open until we have a quorum. But you do have more time.
No, you won't feel lonely. It'll be okay.
Sorry. Well, that's Sid's got to produce, man.
Yes. Okay.
Good afternoon, Assemblymember Gatto. I think I just saw you in your committee.
Indeed.
We have, I believe, two bills of yours up today, file item 13 and file item 21. So if you would like to proceed, file item 13.
Sure, thank you. So Assembly Bill 2244 is designed to establish a clear set of guidelines for the use of electronic filing in courts. When I started practicing law, electronic filing was a fantasy. It was something that we all hoped would take over someday, and it has, as everybody knows. But there are certain things that need clarification. So the entities which create and maintain the electronic filing portals in courts are known as electronic filing managers, or EFMs. And the companies that interact with law firms and the other filers to transmit documents to courts through those portals are known as electronic filing service providers, or EFSPs. And I promise those are the only acronyms I will use today. This bill will require courts and EFMs to accept multiple payment types. And of course, this is necessary because we need to clarify certain implementation issues, such as how the current process has affected the indigent, and whether or not there is sufficient competition among vendors, and of course, the cost of electronic filing. 2244 will clarify that fees for electronic filing may not exceed the costs incurred to provide the service. The same rules applies to convenience fees for the use of credit and debit cards or an electronic funds transfer. 2244 will further exempt litigants with fee waivers from being required to pay electronic filing fees, so that we can ensure that their documents are electronically filed regardless, which benefits the system as a whole. 2244 will also permit EFSP fees to be a recoverable cost if e-filing is mandated by the court. And lastly, the bill will prohibit a court from being held liable for the actions of an agent of the court, and require agents of the courts to report their costs for providing credit or debit card or electronic fund transfer payments. This is a sensible bill that brings some clarity to the world of electronic filing. It will resolve some ambiguities and help the system grow, and I ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Assemblymember. Witnesses in support, 2 minutes each, please.
Madam Chair and members, Mike Belote. I represent a coalition of electronic filing service providers. These are the people who take filings from filers, law firms, and others, and go through the electronic portal using an EFM to actually file with the court. More and more courts are requiring electronic filing of documents. It is the future. It means huge savings for courts, and we ought to be encouraging it. But we have, with the collapse of the now infamous CCMS, you have each court setting up their own system. And there are gaps in the law that this bill attempts to close and clarify. That is, how the charging is going to go, that you must do filings for indigent filers and others exempt from filing fees at no charge, and that we've been working with the Judicial Council and the courts to craft this bill so that it resolves some of these questions and helps build the foundation for the future, which is electronic filing. Some of the courts represented by folks on the committee, Senator Morlock, for example, Orange County has a very robust system, and we have been working with the people that have been the architects of that. We want to have stable, consistent, understandable rules statewide so that people know how the future is going to unfold in e-filing. We have no opposition and would ask for an aye vote.
Thank you very much. Other witnesses in support?
Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Andy Liebenbaum, and I'm representing Judicial Council of California today. And I'm sorry that it's not reflected in your report, but we do support the bill. What's interesting is that, I think, as you know, in the analysis identifies, the council has been working on electronic filing since 1999. Over the years, incrementally, the council has been involved in legislative efforts, rules of court, that would bring, as Mr. Belote mentions, this to reality. It is, in fact, not just the future, it is now where electronic filing is happening. So what we find is with AB 2244 an opportunity to tighten up some of the rules that are being promulgated. We came to the legislation a little late, but we're very glad to be involved. We worked very closely with the author's office and the sponsor of the bill. We were able to provide some technical assistance because of the work our technology committees are doing that is very parallel to what's happening in 2244. And with that, we're happy to support, and we agree. We urge your aye vote.
Thank you very much. Other witnesses in support? Are there any witnesses in opposition? Any questions from the dais? Senator Morlock.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was having some difficulty, so I just want to ask a few questions. What are we trying to do with the processing if you have a credit card charge?
We're trying to make it so that credit card charges cover only the cost of providing the transmission of funds. So we're trying to clarify that we shouldn't make a profit off the act of receiving a payment by credit card.
Yes, the bill clarifies, and we think consistent with current rules of court, that the charge for the convenience fee may not exceed the actual cost incurred by the credit card provider or ACH or whoever is facilitating that payment. So this clarifies that you may recover that charge, but only the actual cost.
So one might look at this as a anti-fees bill.
Well,
I know you hate taxes and fees.
Well, I had 12 years as treasurer tax collector for the County of Orange, and we would allow taxpayers to pay with credit card, but we could not absorb the convenience fee, which is 2.5%. So if you have a $10,000 bill, it's like, why should I cover that cost? So we would charge for that, but it's kind of hard because there's tiers and all kinds of other fun stuff. And I worked for a decade trying to get the bankers to say, hey, wait, why even charge a fee to a non-retail client? But that's another.
Yeah, this allows a recoupment of the fees incurred, but nothing more. So
Right.
it's fair.
So yeah, so are you going to build that into the pricing so that it over the whole, everyone's getting, some make a subsidy, some don't, but it just sort of all works out? Or are you going to have a separate charge on top of the charge?
Transaction charge imposed by the electronic filing service provider, just as they would have charged somebody to take the documents physically to the court.
Compensated.
So they get compensated. They may additionally add on the convenience fee that does not exceed the actual cost of providing the service, the payment, and we have built-in language that the Judicial Council can audit that and demand proof that you're not.
So we're making sure that the government isn't subsidizing these.
Right.
That's all I'm trying to clarify. I apologize. I'm having a little difficulty in.
It is a very complicated, narrow little area when you get into EFMs and EFSPs and courts.
I used to live there once, and so that's why I was asking. Thank you, Assemblyman Gatto. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Senator Leno, no questions. Assemblymember Gatto, would you like to close?
I ask for your aye vote.
All righty. When we get a quorum and we can have a motion, we will take a vote on the bill. At this point then, moving on to file item, we have another bill by Assemblymember Gatto, file item 21.